Common access resources are resources that are both non-excludable and rivalrous. Water is a common access resource because it has no private ownership and is available to everyone's use. If one person uses up water resources, it decreases the benefits of all other users. For example, if one ship sails out into the ocean and captures a couple hundred fish, there will be less fish for other users. Tragedy of the commons is the concept of the depletion of a common access resource by individuals that are acting independently and rationally according to their personal benefit. If there are no restrictions on a common access resource, it is humans' rational behavior to use up as much as possible of that resource for their immediate benefit than to try and use a resource sustainably and in the long term. People use up as much water as they can since they have to pay no cost for it or trade-off. Water use has been growing at more than twice the rate of population increase in the last century. This increasing scarcity affects 1 in 3 people in the world. This water scarcity has crucial influences on health. Because of this scarcity, people store water in their homes, which can increase the risk of household water contamination that provides the breeding grounds of mosquitoes. These mosquitoes carry malaria and other diseases. Water scarcity has caused an increase in the use of wastewater for agricultural production in poor and urban areas. More than 10% of people worldwide consume foods irrigated by wastewater that contain chemicals or disease-causing organisms. 1 of 5 people rely on fish as their primary resource of food. Due to the scarcity, there's an increase in fish prices. In the last decade, in the North Atlantic region, commercial fish populations of cod, hake, haddock, and flounder have fallen by 95%.
Water in most cases is not easily enclosed. Groundwater, lakes, rivers, and oceans. The resources that water entails are all very valuable and don't have a clear or any proprietor in addition to being a rivalrous resource. Water is invaluable in the sense that it provides us with a source of liquid to consume. We are able to harness the power of waves and currents to produce hydroelectricity. We can use marine animals as a source of nourishment, and finally, the oceans are responsible for the absorption of 2/3 of the world's carbon dioxide emissions. Most of these uses cannot be used in combination with another use, forcing us to deal with a trade-off and ultimately significant opportunity costs. As different people seek to use water for different purposes, we experience increased competition in addition to increased exploitation of water. Some people compete over the allocation of the usage of water. Some may try to dam a river in order to harness hydroelectric power, while others want to keep it undammed so that it can be used to cultivate freshwater fish like trout. For this scenario, it is essentially impossible to satisfy both of these wants. They may try to battle it out, or some may simply move to another river and set about fishing or damming there. If more and more people do that, we are exploiting and using more and more of the world's water, or in this case, rivers. Water is an unusual case in the sense that it is a common resource which can be exploited by taking out too much or by using it as a cesspool for toxic waste and other pollutants. Water as a common resource isn't only affected by the exploitation of the source itself, it is threatened by the externalities resulting from other processes. For example, the blue gene production in China. Although when you think about it, water doesn't seem to play a role in it. However, it is affected by the toxic waste that is then disposed into the nearby rivers, which eventually leads to the open sea. Water, being such a vast and infinitely useful resource, exposes it to copious amounts of externalities and opportunities to be exploited. We can already see some of these coming into play when we look at fish stocks through the years. Almost all predatory fish, which humans find irresistible as food, are now on the endangered species list. Bluefin tuna, a highly sought-after fish, is estimated to have fallen in numbers by 96.4%. This presents us with the externalities faced by fishing. Huge industrial fleets only seek to weigh their marginal benefit against their marginal cost. If the benefit outweighs the cost, then it is only natural for them to go out and catch tuna. Of course, this doesn't take into account the hundreds, thousands, even millions of other people who are thinking the same thing. Because fish is a common access good, it is non-excludable, meaning that anyone can use it. However, it is also very rivalrous, and as soon as one fish is caught, someone else now can't. So when someone else consumes or uses that resource, it makes it less enjoyable for the next person. This creates a devastating cycle for, in this case, the tuna. As they become rarer and rarer, the price people are willing to pay gets higher and higher. So more and more people go out to make a fortune, resulting in the remaining tuna stocks to become even more scarce. As we look towards the future and the increased competition over progressively scarcer resources, we are steadily heading towards a repeat of the tragedy of the commons. Even looking in the future, a few years ahead, water is a resource and looking increasingly threatened. The water is already becoming massively polluted as factories use it as a cheap way to get rid of their toxic byproducts. Combined with the carbon dioxide drastically increasing the acidity levels in the ocean, threatening the existence of vital bicarbonate-reliant creatures like plankton, the ocean's ecosystem is nearing the limits of collapse. Basing inferences on previous use of ocean's resources, fish stocks will continue to plummet as they increase in scarcity and in price. There are many other challenges that will have to be faced now and in the future concerning the finite resources of the world's water has to offer, including the reduction in drinking water supplies, the off-balance of water allocation and hydropower. With no change in water's dangerous status as a common access good, its future is uncertain.
In today's society, water and its indigenous fauna are seen as common access resources. In essence, common access resources are both non-excludable and rivalrous and essentially have no owner, and in turn have very few, if any, restrictions on their usage. Therefore, in order to maintain the existence of both fresh, clean water sources and its indigenous species, both society and the market for water-related goods need to band together to stop the overuse and general unsustainable mentality we have towards common access resources as water. Fortunately, action has already begun. For example, in 1962, the United States federal government closed an inlet inside the Kennedy Space Center to all boat traffic. Now, the move was intended to secure the launch site, not to protect marine life, however, has saved fish populations just the same. The Kennedy Center covers 218 square miles of land and water. The sanctuary provides both a large uninhabited zone for the center, as well as a popular recreation spot for its visitors. Within the Space Center's property, nearly 15 square miles of water have no public access. In 1994, the refuge closed an attached 15 square mile section to motorboats to protect the resident West Indian manatee population that both lived and breeded in the general area. Subsequently, a 4-year study was published in 1999, which found a greater diversity of fish inside the Space Center's closed area than in the immediately adjacent fished areas. According to NRDC.org, sea trout, striped mullet, black, and red drums were all more plentiful and larger in the protected areas. A follow-up study was conducted in 2001 which found that although the area adjacent to the reserve covers only 13% of that certain part of Florida's coastline, it produced more than 50% of the fish life in that region. Although created for purposes other than conservation, studies confirm that this reserve produced clear benefits for fish and the fishing public. Although accidental, this action not only protected the existing marine life in the area, but also introduced new species unseen in the area before. This is just one of hundreds of events that have taken place to ensure both the continuation of marine life and the abundance of clean, fresh, usable water.
As calm and fun seawater might feel or look like, seawater is one of the biggest, most powerful natural resources that can cause humongous disasters, that can cause loss of homes, schools, and more importantly, lives. All of the mass disasters caused by the power of this water often makes the governments bankrupt in poor countries, due to the cost for repair. On the 20th April 2010, a very big disaster occurred in Mexico. This disaster got called the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. The oil spill was owned by a company called BP, also known as British Petroleum. When the oil spilled and spread around the sea of Gulf... The oil spilled and spread around the sea at the Gulf in Mexico. Not only lives got affected, but also the innocent animals living nearby. The map above shows what the sea looks like from an above satellite owned by NASA. It really damages everything around the affected area. This was one example out of many more. Fishing is also one of the biggest problems for the environment as well. Fishermen take too big of a privilege. They fish more fish than the fish produce themselves. So what is anyone doing to avoid these things from happening, and what are the solutions we have to avoid this? For pollution, a solution would be incentives not to pollute, consequences for overpollution, so higher taxes on production on certain goods, government's funds to clean up the oceans, lakes, or rivers, and replant damaged coral reef colonies. For overfishing, so for the fishing companies, lower the overall quota for fish, regulate fishing expeditions, more natural reserves, more laws against overfishing.